Endless Hustle, presented by Doc Swinson's, the legendary whiskey blenders from Ferndale, Washington. I absolutely love Doc Swinson's, and if you haven't tried it, go to their website and check out their selection. Scoot McNairy, congratulations, brother. I love Narcos. I cannot wait for it to be back. I loved Walt Breslin. It's got to be exciting, man, to be bringing this season back.
Yeah, no, it is. Pleasure, Arthur. Thanks for taking the time.
No, my pleasure, man. I love this show. I've watched like anything around cartel life, I'm in. And Netflix owns the cartel life monopoly. So I'm always in on this.
Yeah, I'm right behind you. I'll be honest with you. I didn't start till like season 4 of the series, and I was a huge fan of it, from Columbia, seasons 1, 2, and 3. So I'm right there behind you.
So let's just jump into it. Obviously, you get introduced last season. You end up becoming the narrator. We have no idea what's going to happen. Walt Breslin obviously becomes this like major character. Then we see everything that happens with Diego's character and Kiki and all that great stuff. What are we going to see in this new season?
Well, I think there will be less of Diego this season, as his fortunes sort of landed him where we left off with him. He's in jail. In this season, you sort of get to see what happens when a leader of a group goes away, and it's up for grabs for who's going to take over the business of the cartel in Mexico. And I think based on his departure, things don't get run smoothly. There's you have a lot of these different plazas fighting for control over like border towns and for distribution, and what happens from that disorganization and what are the repercussions of that, and also sort of new rising kids called Narcos Juniors that are sort of rising into the Narcos tapestry, of what is to come going forward, with the times that we are now, the 90s and then into 2000s, which we don't get that far, but sort of like a glimpse into what that will look like.
They were like the earliest form of social media influencers. It's like Narcos influencers. That's the next series right there. It's incredible. Like I watch these series, and then obviously Netflix will have like the real life docu-series around the real life people, whether it's El Chapo or Gallardo or the Cali cartel. And it's amazing to see how they're able to essentially capture what happened in real life, but bring it into this fictionalized world with Narcos. How much, when you have to play this character, like how much do you actually go back and try to do as much research as possible? Or is it kind of like, hey, let me just stay with the script, create this whole world in my head and go from there?
No, I mean, I would like to say I dug up all this research, but it was all handed to me on a silver platter. The showrunner Carlo this year, and also the writers and the Eric Newman and the producers and stuff, they did an incredible job at taking sort of these real life situations, dramatizing them and incorporating them into these storylines. So I mean, I feel like they do an incredible job at merging the two. Side note, I talked to a friend who's in government. I won't say which agency, but his love for the show as well was, well, I mean, never mind, I have to say, he worked with the CIA. And so he was sort of following this at this time, or was working at the CIA in the 90s. And so his love for the show, which he expressed to me, was that it was so accurate in regards to the historical events that had taken place. And that's what he loved about it so much, was because he remembers all of that when he was working these cases and stuff with the CIA. So I think that Eric Newman and that whole group of people working on the show did an incredible job at sort of taking those historical moments and, obviously dramatizing them for the sake of story and entertainment. But they really do stick to those main current events and doing an excellent job at weaving those into the season's storyline.
You've had such a fascinating career. And as I was prepping for this interview, you've been an actor that I followed and watched for a long time. And you've been a part of so many projects that I loved things like Argo and obviously Fargo and now this. But I didn't really have a full grasp of your story. And being this kid from Texas who's essentially become this unlikely leading man, it's such a cool kind of Hollywood tale to it. I want to turn back the clock. You're this kid in Texas. How does acting become your thing? How does it become your passion? And when do you decide this is something you want to do professionally?
I think I just realized I didn't want to get a job when I was younger, and or I wanted to have I want to do this job or that job. And they're like, you can't be a fireman and a architect and all these different things. So, that was something that was sort of sparked my interest in it. But I actually, it was for my love for cinematography. I mean, obviously my love for films, but my love for cinematography is what brought me out to Los Angeles to go to film school. And so, there's that saying in the business, like the industry picks you, you don't pick the industry. And so no one was hiring me to be a cinematographer. So, that's where I landed. And then, once you start to go down that path, I obviously dove much deeper into it, and leaned into being a professional actor, probably around 24 or 25. I got very serious about it.
So what does that process look like when you finally commit yourself and you're like, all right, I'm not going to end up being Tarantino here, and we'll talk all about him because you've gotten to work with him, and I'm obsessed with Tarantino, but you decide to lean into this thing. Do you start taking acting classes? What does it look like at that point?
Yeah. But I mean, listen, I overexceeded my expectations years ago. I never thought I'd still be working at my age ever. But meaning I got serious about it. Yeah, I started to, I was doing commercials for a while, and I kind of felt like I got my finger on the pulse on those. And so my commercial agent at the time was kind of like, hey, you should be doing TV and movies and stuff. And so I started to kind of go out for those things, but I really didn't have very much success at it. And it wasn't before I honestly got rid of my representation and hired my commercial agent to be my everything, that the two of us sort of got together and sort of coming up with a strategy and game plans and stuff that I really felt like I had a partner in this to help me sort of navigate through it. And that was also a lot of, I was taking acting classes 2 or 3 a week, doing plays and stuff, and just throwing yourself into all of it and trying to figure it out and, figure out what works best for you. Because I don't feel like there's any coach or teacher or way to do the entertainment business. You just kind of got to stick your foot in there and figure it out yourself and figure out what works for you.
So when you put that game plan together, is it like, hey, these are the types of characters that I should be playing? Is it like, these are the auditions that I should be going on? What did that game plan look like at that point?
Well, I mean, to get really honest about it, well, for everybody, it's different, but for me, I remember one thing that I've fought for was I needed 2 days for my auditions. And that's just, you don't get them. You know what I mean? It comes in at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night. You got to be there at noon the next day. My success rate for those was 1%. And so this manager that I had fought for me to get me an extra 24 hours. And my success rate for having 24 hours with a casting was 30%. And so it was little bitty things like that of having somebody fight for kind of what I needed or what helps me best, whereas before it just felt like so many of those struggles and those hurdles were just unheard.
There's a great story. You've gotten to work with the man of the moment right now, Ben Affleck, and I know you have a good relationship with him. But there's a great story that I found that you had done an Axe body spray commercial with him in the early 2000s. And then you end up auditioning for, I think it was Argo, and you remind him, hey, remember me from the Axe body spray commercial? How hilarious was that? When he realized who you were, what was that like?
Well, I didn't say anything to him about it until after I had already read for him. I had read, and then I got back and read for him. And then when I was leaving, as I was walking out the door, I was like, oh yeah, and Axe body spray. And he was like, no fucking way. I knew that was you. I knew it was you. And I just slammed the door and left. You know, that was one thing I did learn young. Like, when you're done reading, get the hell out of the room. Don't stick around for pleasantries.
Ben's having just an incredible moment. Talk about a guy who's had so many ebbs and flows of his career, but he's definitely on that top of the mountain moment again. He's going to potentially win an Oscar for The Tender Bar. He's at the top of a ton of lists right now. He's making great movies. He's obviously got a famous relationship. But what is it about Ben, having had this relationship and seeing him as a filmmaker? What is it about working with someone like him that allows him to be such a talented filmmaker?
I don't know. I couldn't tell you, other than I just think he didn't give a shit like about what other people say or think. And one thing that he said to me that really stuck with me was, I make movies that I would watch. And like, that's the best way to make a movie is, oh, I would go see this movie. So therefore that's what makes him want to make that movie. That being said, he's an incredible filmmaker, incredibly talented, really gifted with directing and editing and the whole that, you just have, and writing, not to mention writing, he's just one of those guys that's like a talent, man, all the way across the board. And he doesn't let anybody else, try and knock him down or get in his way,
We always hear from different actors and actresses. Everyone always says the same thing: work with the best. Whether you're Leo and Scorsese or De Niro and Scorsese, obviously Tarantino has his group that he brings along for a ton of his movies. What is that symbiosis like when you're an actor and you find this kind of almost dreamlike relationship with a filmmaker or producer? I know you've worked with Brad Pitt as well with Plan B. What is that magic like when you find that kind of relationship where it just gels?
Luck. I mean, I just feel like very lucky to be in the, to be working with, I mean, for me as an actor, like I grew up watching all these guys, my career didn't really hit till I was 30. So I had 15 years of watching these guys. So like and also those are the movies that they were in, the movies that I really gravitated towards. So yeah, being able to work with them is, and work on the movies that I think are cool and that I really enjoy it's like a massive blessing. And I don't know. I don't know. I feel really, like I said, I exceeded wherever I thought I would be in this career years ago. So yeah, everything from here out is bonus. And to be able to work with those people, as far as what gels, I don't know, just be cool, or try to just be chill and keep your mouth shut when you're supposed to keep your mouth shut, and open it when you're supposed to open it.
When you're going through the sleeping out of your car, couch surfing days, every actor I feel like has those moments. I mean, we hear the stories about some of the biggest stars on the planet. I mean, Kevin Hart and you name it, people pretty much are all sleeping out of their cars in LA at some point. When you're in that paradox as an actor, were there moments where you're like, what the fuck did I do with my life? Why am I doing this? I should have been an attorney. Like, what's going through your head when you're a struggling actor?
Man, those feelings never go away, whether you're in a car or in a bed with, those
3,000 count thread count.
Yeah,
sheet.
that's what I was trying to count thread. Yes. I don't think that kind of stuff ever goes away. And I feel like in this business, you no matter if you proved yourself last year, nobody cares the next year. You got to prove yourself again. And it's a constant consistency of like constantly trying to prove yourself. But as far as like those times, yeah, you're always questioning, did I make the right decision? But then like you also look at like, what's the ladder? I'm not going to go back to Texas and work a desk job. You know what I mean? And I remember even saying that to like my father who passed this year. And I remember saying that to him. I was like, I would rather be homeless in Los Angeles going after something than be incredibly wealthy in Texas with going after nothing.
What a great quote. What was his response to that?
What are you going to say to that? No response. He's like, all right, and that's like sort of what led to like, see, during those times, you really dig deep to find your love for like what you're doing. Because it is a weed out process being in the entertainment business. It's long hours, hard work. It's relentless. It's hard on family. It's hard on yourself. You really do have to find that that like genuine love for it, or you'll quit or go do something else. So I just have a real passion for storytelling and stories, and the way that they make people feel, and the way that they've made me feel and changed my viewpoints on a lot of issues and things. And so I just feel like it's a really powerful medium that I feel really lucky to be a part of. Like even playing the villain or something, if it's the story's got a great message in it, I'm just happy to be a part of that story.
So what's the moment that you realize, and again, you'd mentioned it perfectly, actors, no matter how successful you are, I was just talking to Peter Sarsgaard about this, you're always worried what your next job is, if it's going to happen, if you're going to get the right types of scripts. But what was the moment where you realize, okay, this is a career. This is something that I'm not going to hopefully be sleeping in my car ever again, and I can actually make a living on this?
Oh, that's tough to say, because I mean, I've been making a living at it since I was 21 years old. Commercials were incredibly lucrative for me and everyone at this boutique commercial agency. We were all doing well. I moved in my car at a time when like I just hit a dry spell and didn't work for like 9 months, and then I was borrowing money from friends and stuff. But as far as like, this is a career, I don't know. You never really feel like that. I mean, I hate to say that, or it's, you feel like your career could be swiped out from underneath you at any minute, from, I'm not on social media, but from some bad post about your dog, and then the whole world hates you. You know what I mean? It's like, wow, God, that didn't see that coming. So, I mean, I don't think you ever really feel some sort of stability in it. That's why you just sort of enjoy it, because you don't know how long it's going to last, and you don't know if it's your last job, and you always feel like that, but yet you get another job and that's sort of the excitement of being in the business, is you can have a bad week and then get a phone call from somebody, and like all of a sudden you have 6 months of work in front of you that you're excited about, which is like, it's a real blessing, and like it's a real privilege to be an actor, or to work as an actor, or in some regards to be a part of the entertainment industry. It really is. And so that's, I feel like, if anything I've learned over the years is that like, this isn't a curse, this isn't a frustration, this is a privilege, and relish in that, and be excited that you get to do this, and remind yourself how lucky you are that you get to do this. And so, yeah, some people are talented, but there's a lot of talented people out here, and not all of them are getting opportunities. So I just thank my lucky stars that I'm even sitting here talking to you.
Let's talk social media, because as I was prepping, I'm like, let me check out Scoot's social media. And I'm like, shit, this guy has no social media. How do you survive in this day and age without social media? What's behind that choice?
I don't think it's really a choice. I have so much time. I mean, I'm relatively so busy with just other things and work and my kids and whatnot, that I barely have enough time to check my emails through the day, much less log on to something where you thumb through and look at videos. I just don't have the time for socializing on the media, or socializing in my own personal life. I really wish I was a big, what are they called? Followers or influencers. I wish I was a massive influencer and I've wheeled my thing all around town or the world, but I just, maybe in the future I'll get more involved in it. But and I have a love for it. I just, that, and parts of my life are private. I kind of find myself sometimes going, well, I don't know what to post. I'm like, well, I post this. Well, I don't want anybody to know about that. That's personal, or, so you find yourself doing a lot of that too. So I don't know.
By the way, some of those influencers are now making what movie stars are making. So we kind of like are being, halfway satirical about it.
Yes. But they're working 24 hours a day for, you know what I mean? That is a round the clock job to be making millions of dollars as influencers. So it's, at the end of the day, it's not easy. It's not free money. You know what I mean? So they're working their tails off for it.
So let's talk some Tarantino. I love Tarantino. I've interviewed him twice on red carpets. And the thing that strikes me about Quentin is he's just as big a personality as his actors are. And you're like, man, this guy, if he wouldn't have made it as one of the greatest American filmmakers or just filmmakers, period, of all time, he actually could have probably been a great character actor. And it blew me away at his presence and his charisma. But then you couple that with his vision for filmmaking, and the guy's just truly something special. You get a role in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which I got to talk to you all about. It's one of my favorite films of all time, but you get a role without even auditioning for him. Tell me about the process behind that.
I 100% auditioned. Well, I mean, I auditioned for the job. In regards to that, let me just clear that up. I put myself down on tape and I sent it in, and I think he had somebody that he had in mind for that particular part. And I think it was down to a scheduling thing. And I sort of got a call last minute, which is potentially the reason why he wasn't able to meet with me in person. I think I got the call 3 weeks beforehand. So that said, I mean, it's like something on your bucket list, you know, growing up watching movies. I mean, Reservoir Dogs was a movie I saw when I was a kid. And so, you know, obviously over the years and watching all of his movies and him being somebody that everyone's sort of sought out to work with. I mean, yeah, it's on your bucket list. It's a dream come true. And again, like you said, when you get there on set, you realize that he is so much more entertaining than any of the actors on set, you know, and I just found myself kind of staring at him, like not starstruck, but like, geez, wow, this guy is fascinating. The things that come out of his mouth and his memory for, like I think I said this in an interview before, of a guest star that had one line in a TV show 30, 40 years ago. He knows the guy's name, he knows the guy's career. It was just fascinating to hear him talk and just hold court. You know, and obviously Brad and Leo are there, but you're staring at Quentin, you know.
When you look around, you're on Once Upon a Time in Hollywood set. You got arguably the two biggest movie stars of a generation starring together. You've got arguably the biggest director, top three of a generation. What do you kind of think at that point when you're kind of just turning your head, you're on a swivel and you're like, holy shit, I'm here right now?
Well, Timothy Oliphant saw my head swiveling from across the Western set. And I, you know, like what? And he, sweetest guy in the world, he comes over to me and he just looks at me and he goes, you didn't get a script, did you? And I was like, no, I didn't. He goes, sit down. And he sat me down on the steps there because everybody was working and busy. And he gave me as much information as he possibly could about what was going on with the story and the movie and the scene. And he was like, does that help? And I was like, I can't thank you enough for that. So there was a certain sense of like, holy shit. But then Timothy calmed that the second he came over and told me what was going on, made the set feel really, really comfortable. And after that, you just start playing and Quentin starts coming up with his ideas and stuff. And, you know, obviously you got a massive amount of trust when it comes to a filmmaker like that. So you're kind of, you know, putty in his hands. I do remember we did like 6, like I get shot in the movie and I get killed and we did like 6 of them. And I remember after the second one, he's like, oh, that's it. And he said, can you keep going? Because I just like watching these falls, you know, I'm probably not going to use them. So we did like 6 more and he's just fun. He's just so much fun as an actor or even I'm sure as a DP or a grip. He's just fun to work with.
As an actor, are you a 2-take guy or a 30-take guy? Because I've heard the stories of working with David Fincher, and he's like, we're doing 40 takes today. Like, what do you prefer? Are you able to nail it pretty quickly? Or are you a guy that wants to really lay it out and try it 40 different ways?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I don't really think about it because you never know if you're a 2-take guy or if they're running behind. You know, and so I don't know if I'm a 2-take guy. I mean, I will say sometimes after take 15, I'm like, God, maybe I should reconsider this job, or like maybe I'm not right for this role. But it's not always, usually I don't know, like 4 or 5. I feel like, me personally, I wish we could shoot the rehearsals, because usually like right around the time that we're rehearsing the first take, I'm ready. I'm usually chomping at the bit and ready to go.
Do you know when you've nailed the take? Like, I mean, as an interviewer and as a TV host, I've been doing this over a decade. You know when it was magical. As an actor, do you know when that moment was magical, when you're like, I nailed this take?
No, I mean, no, definitely no. But I feel like when we make a mistake, and both of the actors, or the actors all in it, make the mistake and keep going, I feel like those are the times that's to me is the magic. Like something that wasn't prepared, wasn't improvised, and it worked, and there was tension, and it was great. That to me is like the magic. Sometimes the redundancy of doing something over and over and over, you try and find new ways to reinvent it, or do a take differently, or that you do sort of run out of your bag of tricks, or tricks in the bag, that and that you just keep yourself from going inward, getting into your head, and just
The Sopranos is my all-time favorite TV show. And I was just reading this great article on James Gandolfini, who is just, in legend at this point and gone way too soon. But it was talking about both the great of him as an actor, but also some of the demons he had to battle off screen. But it also details how magical he was to everyone, and the charisma, and how people really responded to him. He was almost this larger than life presence who was almost too shy about it, and because he'd become too famous. Was there a person that you encountered in Hollywood who had that larger than life presence, who you stand in their orbit and they were a planet all to themselves, and the first time you encountered it, you were like, holy shit, this person really is true Hollywood stardom?
It's a great question. I don't know about like true Hollywood stardom, but more so of like fascinating individuals. And I will say, Ben Mendelsohn is,
Love him.
people think he's like incredibly talented, and he is, but what the guy does when the cameras aren't rolling is so much more fascinating than anything I've ever seen him do on camera. And if you get to know the guy, like, he is just a lovable, interesting, complicated, funny, fun, bizarre, entertaining guy that you just want to be around him when they call cut, because I feel like that's when the real magic. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's incredibly talented on camera and in everything that he does. But I'm just saying, off camera, that's what I like. I love hanging out with Ben, or seeing Ben, and just seeing him trot around a room and talk. He's just a real fascinating, odd individual.
The first time I interviewed Ben Mendelsohn was for this amazing TV show he did for Netflix, Bloodline. And that was like the early Ben Mendelsohn days. He then goes on to do like Star Wars and becomes one of literally the premier prestige actors in Hollywood over like a 3 or 4 year span. And he's in every major project imaginable. But I was like, man, there's something about this guy and the way he speaks and the accent. And he almost has like, I don't know if it's a lisp, but there's something like slight there in his delivery. And you're just like, man, there's something fucking cool about this guy. Yeah. And then he goes on to become, and it's actually funny because you two almost have like these unique types of careers where you almost start off as character actors, but then you merge into and morph into leading men. And I'm looking at you right now, and here you are leading Narcos. You're leading all these projects. Is there a shift for guys like you and him where you're like, all right, I'm not just a supporting actor anymore. Shit, I'm actually leading projects now. How crazy is that?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I like both. I like character actors. It really just comes down to the character. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's a lead, and sometimes I'll get an offer or get a job will come my way for like the lead, and I'll read it and think, well, but I really gravitate towards the third lead or the fourth lead, or I really like this other part, and so it's I feel like I'm more chasing obviously great filmmakers and great talent to work opposite of, but I'm also chasing the roles that that have a little bit more meat on the bones than maybe the other one, or something I just gravitate towards.
Was there one that you either turned down or didn't get a role specifically that you kind of look back and you're like, man, I would have loved to have seen what I could have done with that one?
Yes, but I probably won't say that in an interview. But yeah, there's been maybe one or two. But that being said, I always find myself fascinated or interested in what that actor's choices were, and it's also gone the latter, where I've seen somebody take a job that I didn't get and be like, wow, amazing! Like they did so much better than what my interpretation of the role was, and it's so much more enjoyable, and I'm like glad that I didn't get it, or glad that I ended up passing on it,
So I read that you're highly dyslexic, I believe. Am I correct? How hard does that make that with the memorization of lines and learning scripts? How much of a hurdle is that for an actor?
I mean, dyslexia comes in so many different forms, and like my dyslexia, dyslexia is not just one, you could be really dyslexic with math, but really great at reading and writing, or you could, vice versa. So for me, it's not a struggle. I learned in dyslexia school when I was younger that, you're going to have to work twice as hard for the things that you aren't as gifted at. So it's not a surprise to me that it takes me a lot longer to learn lines and read scripts and focus, keep my hyper focus on a script. And, some people are like, oh, it takes me an hour and a half to read a script. Well, it takes me about 4. So I'm aware of it now. I mean, I think it was frustrating at first when I started out, but now it's just become the norm that, you just allow yourself more time and, work a little harder at it. But I don't feel like it gets in the way. If anything, I feel like the dyslexia helps me have a different perspective on it. A lot of times I'll read a scene and have a totally different take on it, and really get to set and realize I'm so wrong. They're like, whoa, like, I don't know how you interpreted that. And so, but it also goes the other way. You know what I mean? You interpret it completely different, and you get to set and you have a totally different approach to it. So, I'm aware of it, you know what I mean? And don't sort of hold on to my ideas that tightly and closely, knowing that they could be off.
So you're at this incredible point in your career. I mean, your IMDb right now is absolutely loaded. When you think back to the kid who was sleeping in cars to now, I've got so many projects, I'm constantly in production. What would the guy today say to that kid who was at one point sleeping in cars and begging his friends for money?
Go be a landscape architect. I'm so grateful for everything and feel really blessed. But it's a hard industry, and it's hard work, and I'm so grateful for it. But there's a yin and a yang, you know what I mean? I really wanted to come out here to California and see if I could wiggle my way into this industry, and I didn't want to sit around as a landscape architect going, what if that would have happened? And so you never know. What if you were still sitting there going, I wish I would have done that. I don't have any regrets in my life. I think about things very thoroughly before I do them. And so I'm happy right where I am, and just constantly being aware that to tell myself that I'm lucky and that I'm blessed, and I'm just happy to have a job and be working, especially with everything going on right now in the world. I'm just really grateful to be able to go to work.
Sorry to hear about your dad passing, by the way, this year. But when you look back at that quote you gave him, and then he got to see his son achieve a pretty cool level of success, Do you have any idea like what were his thoughts were? Any just for him being able to see that you did make it, how cool a moment was that? And was he able to understand what you did was really one out of a million? I mean, making in this industry is not easy.
I don't know about like, I mean, yes, I'm sure that he was aware that he was very, very proud and very, very excited for me. But like now having kids, you realize that you're proud of your kids if they're proud, if they're excited. So the level in which how proud he was is irrelevant. If my daughter wanted to be, you know, a fashion designer and she had rose to the level of working at whatever Saks Fifth Avenue, you know what I mean, or Bloomingdale's, if she's proud and happy, then I'm proud and I'm happy for her. And so he was definitely proud and surprised a little bit. He, you know, my dad's one of his roommates in college was Peter Weller. And
Wow.
so he had some friends that go off, that a lot of them that went off to Hollywood to make it as actors. And so, and Peter had some great success, but I guess some of the other guys didn't. So I think it was a little bit of, at first, a little bit of shock. But again, my career didn't change overnight. I mean, it sort of built over the course of 12 years. So there was never this sort of come to Jesus moment of like, oh my word, like you've arrived, or you've, you know what I mean? It was kind of, like I said, it always kind of felt like the bottom was just about to fall out.
I want to talk to you about your nickname, Scoot, obviously. You got it when you were a little kid. I read, there's no real fascinating story behind it. But when you get to Hollywood, was there ever pressure to drop the nickname and to go with your real name?
I'll be honest with you, man. I dropped it. When I got out here, like, and I met with this commercial, who's my manager now. He knew me as Scoot. All my friends had known me as Scoot coming from Texas that came out here, a group of people. And so they call me that because it's from what I've been going by forever. But I had, John Marcus McNairy on a thing, and on the headshot, and when I brought it to him, he was like, "Who's this guy?" And I was like, "That's my name." And he was like, "No, we're sending you out under Scoot." And I was like, "Okay, that's fine." Again, never having any expectations that the career would go anywhere. So I was like, whatever, send me out under Bartholomew. I don't care. I just need to pay my rent, And so, it's a name I've been going by since I was a kid. Some of my friends I grew up with call me John. I respond to both. Someone calls me John, I look. If someone calls me Scoot, I look,
Was there ever any funny reactions, like in a casting room or director, and being like, "Scoot, what are you talking about here?"
No, I mean, other than like people sometime like on Narcos, like a lot of the crew call me Skip or Scoot. And I don't correct people if they call me Skip or Scout or Scott or Scoot. And I think I kind of enjoy that, letting them go for, a year or 2 years, calling me Skip or Scout or something that I enjoy that as well.
My final question. One of the reasons that I started the show, Scoot, was to talk to successful people about the habits that they incorporate in their life to help make them successful. What are some of the habits you incorporate in your own life that allow you to continue to elevate?
That's a good question. That's an awesome, cause or memo. Man, it's an easy one, but it's one that I've definitely leaned on my whole life. Work your ass off, and when you're tired, keep working your ass off. And when there's no sleep, you just keep working. And there's struggles and hurdles in America, but like the one thing that does feel that if you do consistently and persistently work and work and work and work and work and work, you will find some sort of gratification in what it is that you're doing.
Perfect answer to end on. Congratulations. Narcos Mexico is back. Scoot, this was awesome, man. You're one of my favorite actors working today, and I can't wait to see this new season.
Hey, thanks, Arthur. Thank you for the kind words, and thank you for taking the time, man.
My pleasure, man. Take care, brother.
Rockstar.